Today I have traveled to the absolutely beautiful Marietta, Georgia. There's a lot going on out here today. A lot of people. Cool fountain. There's just a lot going on. I don't know. Everybody's just enjoying the beautiful day, I guess. This is their town square right here that I'm standing in. As you can tell by the title of this video, I'm not here to talk about Marietta, though. Like I said, as you can tell by the title of this video, today we are talking about a wrestling legend, Miss Elizabeth. If you're a wrestling fan growing up in the 80s, you knew Miss Elizabeth. She died here in Marietta, Georgia, and we're going to go over to the place where she died at, and we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to tell what happened in Miss Elizabeth's last days alive on this earth. It's a tragic story. It's a tragic set of circumstances that happened to a wonderful person.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Miss Elizabeth.
We're here at the Riverstone townhomes at Wildwood. They were just built. It was built in 2002. It was just built a year prior to the events of this story taking place. If you grew up throughout the 80s, or even before that, as a young child and a wrestling fan like I did, then you know the sweet and innocent woman who we also on TV named Miss Elizabeth. Elizabeth was born Elizabeth Ann Hulette from Frankfort, Kentucky. She was working on getting her bachelor's degree at the University of Kentucky in communications, and she was working at the campus television station when she had an interview with a local wrestling superstar named the Macho Man Randy Savage. Macho Man and Elizabeth met, and they instantly fell in love. In real life, Macho Man and Elizabeth were married in December of 1984, just 2 months after I was born. In 1985, Macho Man was still working at a place called International Championship Wrestling, and he got offered a contract with Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation, which is now known as WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. This was the big leagues for professional wrestling. So Macho Man signed his contract with WWF, and they decided they were going to pair him up and have a manager with him, or a valet, and he got them to bring on Miss Elizabeth. For years, fans became invested in the relationship between the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. Fans, they thought they made a great couple together, and they were hooked. In 1987, the WWF began a famous segment where Elizabeth stepped into the ring trying to stop the Honky Tonk Man from beating up Randy with his guitar. Now, the Honky Tonk Man, he was being portrayed as the bad guy on the show at that time. And, you know, bad guys, they have to find a way to get the crowd angry. They have to find a way to get some kind of heat on them. So the Honky Tonk Man pushed Elizabeth down really hard, or as it appeared, it really wasn't hard. This caused the fans to start booing. So Elizabeth ran backstage, and she came back out from the locker room area with the WWF's top star then, Hulk Hogan. Hogan comes to the ring and saves Macho Man, and all of a sudden a new alliance was created that they called the Mega Powers.
You and I are fighting for the same lady, brother. She is now our manager. No way, I don't think so.
For years, the Hulkster, Macho Man, and Miss Elizabeth, they were the top stars on WWF television. They were the reason people were buying tickets to come see that show live. The people wanted to watch Hogan drop a leg on his opponents, and they wanted to come see Macho Man fly from the top rope and drop an elbow, all while Miss Elizabeth cheered them on from ringside. During all of this time, behind the scenes, the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth, they were still married in real life. Over the years, Randy became very jealous of Elizabeth, you know, talking to other superstars. And the WWF saw this, and they eventually worked it into a storyline, splitting up Hogan and Macho Man and having them face each other at WrestleMania. This led to more problems because as the WWF took advantage of splitting up the Macho Man and Hogan, they also developed storylines where Miss Elizabeth would go back and forth between the two men, and they wound up pairing Macho Man with another woman who, her name was the Sensational Sherry, and they paired Miss Elizabeth with Hulk Hogan for a while. This only exacerbated Macho Man's jealousy over Miss Elizabeth, and eventually the WWF realized that the two of them were better together than they were apart. So they developed another storyline where the Macho Man was in trouble and Sherry was part of it, and Miss Elizabeth comes out to save him, and then they wind up hugging each other like, hey, we're back together, and the fans went nuts. The top blew off of the arena they were in. Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth remained paired up together for years after that. She would eventually, you know, kind of get tired of the life, and she would try to start stepping away from the spotlight. And this meant she was being seen on TV less and less gradually over time. Behind the scenes, though, during this time, just one day out of the blue, Miss Elizabeth had packed up all her bags and left when Randy came home. She would later tell him she wanted a divorce. Now, it's still unclear to me as to what really happened there. Some people say that Randy was abusive to Elizabeth, and others say that she just couldn't take his jealousy anymore. Either way, though, she bolted. And the World Wrestling Federation at the time, they tried to hide all of this from the fans. They kept the two paired together on screen, and they tried to keep anyone from knowing what was really happening. In the 90s, World Championship Wrestling, WCW, it was becoming popular, and Turner, they started offering like major contracts that were worth big money for these superstars to swap companies, to go from WWF to WCW. And the Macho Man was one of the superstars who took them up on their offer. So was Hulk Hogan, so was Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, all of these guys. Someone behind the scenes in WCW managed to convince Miss Elizabeth to also swap and come over to WCW. And then they paired her with Macho Man on screen together again for a short amount of time.
I can answer that for you. But first,
by this point, Miss Elizabeth had remarried to a lawyer from Florida. It was also at this point, when she was on the road with WCW, that she got close to a fellow wrestler named Lex Luger. Lex was also married, but that didn't stop them. The two, Miss Elizabeth and Lex Luger, they rode together, and they got closer and closer and closer, and eventually they did begin a secret affair with each other. And since neither one of their marital partners were in the wrestling business, they weren't on the road with them, and that gave Miss Elizabeth and Lex Luger plenty of ample time to spend with each other without their spouses even knowing what was going on. In the 2000s, WCW was being mishandled, and they would get bought out by Vince McMahon and the WWF. A lot of the superstars, though, like Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, they had guaranteed contracts from Turner Broadcasting, which meant they could sit at home and collect millions and millions of dollars without having to do anything until their contracts ended, which in some cases meant years. During this time, Miss Elizabeth's marriage and Lex Luger's marriage started, they both started falling apart, and undoubtedly it was because of their secret relationship that they were having with each other. By 2003, Lex Luger owned this townhome right here, and Miss Elizabeth was basically living with him. Even though neither one of their marriages had been finalized, neither one of them were divorced, they were basically living together right here inside of this home. There was allegations of abuse, and police had to come out a couple of times, and eventually Lex Luger was arrested for hitting Miss Elizabeth, standing right here in front of the garage. Lex Luger was actually arrested for hitting her, and then he was released on bond, and then he was rearrested again 2 days later for getting into an accident while driving under the influence. Both Lex Luger and Miss Elizabeth's lives were kind of spiraling downward, and they were both really bad hooked on drugs. A lot of people say that Miss Elizabeth never did that stuff prior to meeting Lex and beginning, you know, to live with Lex. And a lot of people blame him for Elizabeth's downward spiral. On May the 1st of 2003, Lex Luger placed a frantic emergency call to 911 saying that Elizabeth was not breathing. Lex said that throughout the night they were just watching TV, and they had taken a bunch of pills, and they were drinking vodka, and he had actually gotten up to make them some TV dinners. They were standing at the microwave, and Miss Elizabeth was in there with him, and 1 minute she was there, and the next minute she had went and sat down in her chair, and he noticed that she was not breathing anymore. So he calls 911.
She's laying on the floor. I've tried to pick her up. I've tried to...
Okay, what I want you to do, I want you to go over and see if she's breathing.
I can't tell. Please send somebody here who knows what they're doing.
I understand that, sir. I have somebody on the way. But if she's not breathing, you need to help her breathe. You need to find out whether or not she's breathing. Go over to her, roll her, put her on... Sir.
Oh, my God. Please send somebody.
Listen to me. You have got to help her. Lean down.
I'm trying. I've been trying to help her.
Lean down and check and see if she's breathing. Look at her chest. See if it's rising.
Doesn't look like it is. I'm scared to death.
Paramedics rushed out here into this neighborhood, and Miss Elizabeth was scooped up and taken to Keniston Hospital here in Marietta. And Miss Elizabeth was pronounced deceased at 5:45 a.m. that morning. At the same time as paramedics were taking Elizabeth to the hospital, an investigation began here at Lex's home. Because of the history that the two of them had of domestic violence, the police, they felt it necessary to investigate, even though at the onset of all this, they didn't believe Lex was, they didn't believe he had anything to do with it, but they needed to investigate, to do their due diligence. And during their investigation, they found over 1,700 prescription pills he had scattered out throughout his home that did not belong to him. And this was not just pain medicine and Xanax and that kind of stuff. This was also included steroids and growth hormones. Before Elizabeth had even been pronounced deceased, Lex had already been arrested, and he was on his way to jail for those pills. They actually informed Lex Luger of her passing while he was being processed into the jail here in Marietta. After Lex got out, he would end up getting divorced from his wife, and now she knew about the affair, and he would go on to suffer some serious health problems from all the drugs and steroids that he had taken over the years. He even became a quadriplegic temporarily because of all of it, but he was able to regain his strength, and he was able to walk again and drive again, and he would turn his life around completely. Now, present day, he is sober, and he's involved with religion. It's a major part of his life now, and his life transformation all stemmed from this one event here at this townhome that caused the death of Elizabeth Hulette. Once the news got out of Elizabeth's passing, her fans from all over the world were shocked, and they were in disbelief. They could not believe Elizabeth had passed away due to a drug overdose. She just didn't seem like that type of person.
We here at the WWE were deeply saddened by the sudden loss of Miss Elizabeth Hulette. The world of sports entertainment was shocked 2 weeks ago by the untimely death of the First Lady of Wrestling, Miss Elizabeth Hulette.
Many people would say that wrestling probably wouldn't be what it is today had Miss Elizabeth not been involved in all of those 80s storylines. In fact, she played a pivotal role in some of the most dramatic storylines in wrestling history. Miss Elizabeth Ann Hulette, was buried at her family's plot in Frankfort, Kentucky. While Miss Elizabeth's death here came tragically way too soon, it's certain that she will live on through her legacy in the world of professional wrestling. That's the spot right there. Miss Elizabeth died right here inside of this home. That is going to do it for this video today here in Marietta, Georgia, on the death of Miss Elizabeth. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you're new here, go down, hit that subscribe button. The wind just started blowing on me. Then hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. Thank you all. I will see you again tomorrow. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Much love to you all.